Welcome back, my students, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. And in today's lesson, guys, we're going to be looking at the Amazing Spider-Man issue 1, The Chameleon Strikes. And yeah, if you haven't already, go check out the first video in this whole Steve Ditko Stan Lee retrospective, which I covered Amazing Fantasy number 15, the debut of Spider-Man as a character. And yeah, today we're going to be doing issue 1, the first issue of his solo series and the most famous of Spider-Man's ongoing series. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. So our story pretty much starts off with a recap of Spider-Man's origin. Peter basically tells us everything that happened in Amazing Fantasy number 15 for those that hadn't read it. And we're going to get introduced to the character of Spider-Man in this first solo issue. So Peter basically has the powers of a spider, and he also is dealing with the death of Uncle Ben. And his aunt, Aunt May basically doesn't have any money to pay their bills, so she has to pawn stuff like jewelry in order to pay their stuff. So, Peter basically feels pressure to go get a job. Now, Peter basically confronts Aunt May about this and tells her that more than anything, he should probably just quit school and get a job that we can help pay, their bills. But Aunt May basically, tells Peter that Uncle Ben wanted him to be a scientist like he wanted, so he doesn't need to quit school, and that they'll find a way to make some money. So Peter basically has a lot of stress going on, at home and at school because he's worried about Aunt May. And it's just really cool to see, how Peter has these interactions with his fellow classmates, which have no idea what his life actually is like at home. And yeah, so eventually we're introduced to the character of J. Jonah Jameson, probably one of the most famous of Spider-Man's side characters. And it's really cool to see how, even in the beginning when he was first introduced, he hated Spider-Man. And it basically brings this dynamic to Spider-Man, because before this, everyone just loved Spider-Man. And J. Jonah Jameson, when you read Amazing Fantasy number 15, and you see how much everyone just, praises everything Spider-Man does, J. Jonah Jameson is actually very needed to bring a balance to Spider-Man and to let him know that not everyone agrees with him, and that there's going to be challenges along the way when you choose to be a masked superhero. So we get to learn that J. Jonah Jameson's son is actually going into space, and that he actually is coming back, I believe on that day that Peter sees this news. And while Peter is out in the streets looking for a job, looking at the paper, he basically hears about, J. Jonah Jameson's son coming back today. And he also sees Aunt May basically selling her jewelry to kind of pay their bills. And Peter basically lashes out and feels like, everything is useless despite his powers. He can't help his, aunt basically, provide for them. So it's pretty sad. But we get to see Spider-Man basically go and make his way to where J. Jonah Jameson is at. And it turns out that, J. Jonah Jameson's son is actually, his ship is malfunctioned and he's gonna die. Basically, he's gonna crash and die. So Spider-Man gets into costume and he goes to J. Jonah Jameson and just tells him that, he's gonna go and save his son. And J. Jonah Jameson doesn't believe this, but he goes anyway. So Spider-Man basically arrives to where, the space capsule is at, and he tries his best to try to save J. Jonah Jameson's son. And eventually he's able to open some type of mechanism that allows the astronaut to be able to manually, get his parachute out, and he's able to save his life, basically, which I'm pretty sure that in the future this will come back in a plot line regarding J. Jonah Jameson's son, but I think that's hundreds of issues later. So there's no real point in talking about that right now. But yeah, Spider-Man saved his son. And of course, J. Jonah Jameson, in repaying Spider-Man, basically poses that Spider-Man is a menace to society, to New York society. And, Spider-Man's just, surprised seeing this, considering that he just saved his son, and this is how he writes about him. So Spider-Man becomes a wanted man, and he has a reward for his capture, and now Peter's gonna have to deal with this type of situation in the next coming issues, and yeah, it was really good. Now we jump into the second half, because when Spider-Man first started as a solo series, we had about, I think it was like 2 stories per issue. They were really pushing, Spider-Man's world building, just introducing tons of side characters and stuff like that, and the world that Spider-Man lives in. So for a little while, I believe that we're going to be covering 2 stories per issue. But yeah, this story contains the Chameleon story, basically, and it introduces us to Spider-Man's interactions with the Fantastic Four. I believe this is his first interactions, and he gets into a battle with the Fantastic Four and does alright. Eventually, he kind of gets away from each one of their superpowers, showing how strong Spider-Man actually is, considering he had just gotten his powers maybe like a few weeks or a few months ago. And the Fantastic Four have already been superheroes for quite some time, I believe, when this takes place. Now, granted, the theme does state that he was holding his punches, pulling his punches, so we don't really know if he would be able to knock Spider-Man out at this point. But yeah, Spider-Man basically tells him that he was just looking for a job and wanting to join the Fantastic Four. But, after how much they, judged him just because of his costume, he decides to leave and not come back. And it's really cool. Eventually we know that they'll be, friends in the future, especially him and Reed Richards, both being type of scientists. Definitely do hit it off in the future and being friends. But at this moment, Spider-Man's just a kid, and, he just did not have a good interaction with these people. So Spider-Man is basically, just living his life, and we get to see the character of the Chameleon, one of Spider-Man's, if not his first rogue that's introduced in his solo series, who has the ability to change his appearance. So he basically tries to frame Spider-Man, and he, does all these type of crimes, trying to get Spider-Man to be blamed, basically giving J. Jonah Jameson, free advertisement for what he's trying to put in the masses' minds about what they should think of Spider-Man. And yeah, the issue ends basically with Spider-Man chasing down the Chameleon, who kind of like almost got caught out, and eventually he like uses the cop's disguise to try to get Spider-Man to be captured by them, to try to trick the guards. And Spider-Man's spider sense is first introduced in this issue, which is like this tingly feeling he feels when his body is in danger or something like that. I'm not sure if it's just his body's in danger, or if in general, if he's in danger or someone he knows is in danger. It's not explained completely, but yeah, this is the first time we ever see the spider sense. And the Chameleon basically turns off the lights, but Spider-Man's able to sense him in the dark in some way. And while he's trying to use his, webs, he basically finds out that he's all out of the special fluid that he uses. And Spider-Man basically grabs the Chameleon, tells him that he found him, and he basically rips off part of the Chameleon's disguise, his cop outfit, while the other cops are being tricked by the Chameleon to come and attack Spider-Man. Spider-Man gets away, and it's revealed to the cops that with the spot that Spider-Man had ripped off of the Chameleon showed his Spider-Man disguise underneath, and he's basically taken into jail. He's taken in by the cops and sent to jail because they found out that this indeed is the Chameleon. So that was pretty smart of Spider-Man, knowing that the Chameleon would have his clothes underneath. So he was able to reveal who he was while being attacked by the police. And Spider-Man is actually crying at the end of the story, was saying that he wished that he had never gotten my superpowers, basically, as he says. Because of these powers, he got cocky, and it led to the death of Uncle Ben. And now he's legit considered a criminal by almost the entire city. So Spider-Man has a lot going against him right now, but we're definitely going to see him rise above it in the next few issues. And we also get this scene with the Fantastic Four basically asking what will happen if Spider-Man ever turns evil, if he goes against the law and uses powers against the law, because right now he's just a teenager. He was able to take on the entire Fantastic Four. Granted, they might have been holding back, as Ben Grimm the Thing said, but even so, he did really well against 4 superpowered people that are very versed in using their abilities. So what will an adult Superman, what would an adult Spider-Man be like? It's kind of scary if he ever turned evil. And as the issue ends, it says, and the whole world will have to wonder until our next great issue, don't miss it. And that's the end, as it says. And Spider-Man, we know, is not going to turn bad. Spider-Man is literally one of the greatest superheroes of all time, of our time. And he is one of the most beloved superheroes. But that was The Amazing Spider-Man issue 1. which contained 2 different stories. And yeah, for a first issue in his first solo series, I think this was great. It introduced the characters that we needed to know, like J. Jonah Jameson, and we also got Spider-Man's interactions with more of the Marvel Universe. His first interactions with anyone from the Marvel Universe being the Fantastic Four, who, like I said, in the future, him and Reed Richards are very close. So, it will be really cool to see how that friendship develops in the future and what exactly causes that, considering this first interaction that they had. And I will say the Fantastic Four was in the wrong for judging Spider-Man off of his costume and just assuming that he was a bad dude. That was just, pretty messed up, and I don't blame Spider-Man for leaving the place basically angry at them, because these are heroes that he probably looked up to before he got his spider powers, and for them to treat him like that, it's pretty messed up. And it goes into the whole, how people are treated sometimes when having powers such as the X-Men. And yeah, but that's gonna be all, guys. Overall, I do recommend you go check out The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1. It's really good, and it really showcases Spider-Man's character and struggles that he will have to go through throughout his series and this run. And yeah, until the next video when we look at issue 2, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that, and be sure to like and comment on the video to help support and grow the channel. And yeah, don't be scared to share this around on social media to grow the comic class fan base. And yeah, let's talk comics. Until next video, guys, God bless you. Until the next lesson, keep on reading those comics.
I am who I'm meant to be. I am who I'm meant to be. Over and out again. My future needed clarity, so I could see how you react.